There's a business up level coming for you, and I'm not sure you realize it. There's all this effort and all this energy that you've been putting into your business is about to pay off, and there's this avalanche coming in. And today's episode is really here to help you prepare, to understand what's coming next, and just to help you enjoy and receive and be in the best place to receive this avalanche that you're ready for. So let's get into today's episode. Let's get into these messages about your business up level. Number one, man, you guys, people are going to be attracted to light in such a big way, like bigger than we've ever seen before. It's your heart. Like, it's truly like your heart that's going to bring you people. It almost makes me feel like you've been trying all these strategies and you've been taking all the classes and you're, learning all those structures, which of course all of that is great. But what's so funny is that what's going to hit now, part of it is timing. Like, part of it is that like people are finally going to be attracted to more light. That, you might have been in this like very light energy a few years ago and you weren't getting as many people, but now you're going to get so many more because it is a timing. People are ready for it. But also it's because of the way your heart is opening up and kind of like the way your light is leaving and going outside of your body and projecting into other people. And that feels like something you should be proud of. And I think that maybe, it's probably been a long journey and you probably don't even remember where you were before you were your light self. But it almost makes me want to cry. And I want to just take a moment to just applaud you for how much you've worked into this space where there is more light really expressing from your body more than anything else. Of course, there's fears and doubts and all that kind of stuff, but where you have brought yourself to and how light you are right now is truly deserves a round of applause. So I'm super proud of you and really happy for you. And I think it's just important to take that moment to be like, I brought myself here. Like, I worked hard, or I healed myself. I let go of a lot of stuff to bring myself here. And you're finally going to be rewarded for all that light work you have done. And you probably can't even put your finger on it, but truly, like, you're this beautiful, bright light, and you're actually letting that bright light be seen, and it is being exposed and shared, and it's truly going to pay off. I will say is that, of course, there are always going to be fears, and you're always going to kind of sometimes like fall into your old ways, which is like falling into those fears. But I would say that I want you to remember that to leave those fears at the door as much as possible, especially the ones about security. The only thing that can mess up this up level is going into this place, going into a place where you're making decisions based on what would be the most secure thing for you, or making decisions on how well you can protect yourself, if that makes sense. So you're, truly, you are guided right now. You have these angels around you that are going to support you. It is like safe to go ahead and leap and keep your heart open and to really minimize those fears around security. And I know, of course, in business, we're trying to make security. Like, that's the whole point of it. I always call my business my sugar daddy, like it is my security. It's what takes care of me. And I get that. And there was a time that you like needed to do what you needed to do to make sure that you were making money and that you were secure and all that. But that time is over. And I know that it's sometimes scary too, because you have like the PTSD of how long it took you to feel safe and secure. And that safe and secure might come from something outside of your current business. Like, maybe your current business is not like one that's like making that sugar daddy money, as I like to say, but there is security in your life, and you brought that security to you. And this is just not a time to make decisions from a security place. This is more to make a decision and just show up in that beautiful heart light energy that you already embody. And the trick is to stay there as long as possible. Message number 2, big message here. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but I was just getting it again, and so I'm going to say it again. But there is something about getting your ducks in a row. So there's a lot of building infrastructure, building like just things that work, like almost like building like a funnel for people to come into these systems, getting organized. And I feel like this, like you're probably already doing it. You're probably even feeling urgent about it. And what's funny is that I think you're feeling urgent about it because you think like, oh, I'm just so tired of my situation. I want to get into the next situation. And I just like want to be in that place where money's coming in and up level and all that kind of stuff. But what's really interesting is that you're actually being called to do that for another reason that is going to be a surprise. The best word I was getting here was you're actually doing that because there's a pregnancy coming. And obviously, pregnancy can mean many different things. I am not one who will be having a pregnancy. Please no, wrong number, who dis? But there's some, like, pregnancy really sometimes is that feeling of like a surprise, but of course, a welcome surprise. Like, I'm so happy that you're here. But something like a pregnancy takes up time, or like a child, right? Takes up time in a way that you could never imagine. Like people that, if you don't have kids now and then you have a kid and your life changes like so much, of course, in the best of ways, like you're excited about this pregnancy, right? But that's like what's coming for you. So I use the word pregnancy. That might be literal for some of you, but for others of us, it's going to be more like there's this surprise that comes in that you're so excited to accept. But if you did not like set up your business the right way, it would be really hard to accept this thing that's trying to come in. And that could be in itself the avalanche, right? Like I remember, and I've shared this before if any of you have taken business classes with me, but I remember early on in my career, I was driving, down the street. I was dropping off one of my kids at school, and this row of ducks just like crossed in front of my car. And because I see like all the world as like a sign, like I feel like the universe is always talking to me, I noticed these ducks crossing the road, and I'm like, ducks in a row, get your ducks in a row. And I was like, oh, this is a message. Like I'm getting a message about getting my ducks in a row. And I was like, what does that mean? And I was like, well, getting your ducks in a row means like getting organized, getting like systemized. So I remember going home, calling my assistant, Danica, and being like, we need to get our ducks in a row. I'm like, what system right now in the business? And of course, my business wasn't that big. So the only system was like people booking sessions with me. And the way to book a session with me was so complicated. It was like you needed to email my assistant, and then she would tell you a bunch of spots that I had, and then you had to email back what spot worked for you. And then after that, you had to, she would send you a link and you would pay, right? Like all these steps, which of course, all those steps made it hard for people to find me and to work with me. It was almost like having, a rope in front of my work. So I told her, I'm like, we need to systemize all that. Like I want it to be so easy for people to book with us. And I didn't even have a bunch of clients at the time. So sure enough, a couple weeks after that, I get mentioned on a really big podcast. I wasn't interviewed. I was just like, I had done a reading for one of the hosts. They mentioned me, and all of a sudden I was flooded with, for my first flood ever, of people that came into my business. And if I didn't have those ducks in a row, if it wasn't organized, I wouldn't have been able to capture those people safely. So it's almost like preparing, of course, like for that flood in a sense. And that really is what's trying to come through when getting your ducks in a row. So think about how you can systemize. Like if you needed tomorrow overnight to hold 10,000 people in your business, what would you do? Like what changes would you do? And the changes are really about making it easier for people to consume what I am doing. And sometimes that might be just like, oh my God, the button to like buy my product is at the bottom of my website. Let's put it at the top of my website. Or my Instagram gets a lot of, gets people looking at it, but like the link that I have on my Instagram doesn't lead to anything. And it's not really like helping people join my offer or whatever it may be. So looking at those things, taking advantage, because there looks like there might be some sort of lucky break, something that comes through, and you're going to want to have your ducks in a row for that. Message number 3, there's going to be mentors and coaches or advice that's going to come your way. I almost saw like your ears like really lit up. It almost looks like you may even be looking for it, right? So you might even be like listening to mentors and stuff like that online that are people that you look up to, and I feel like they're business people. And while that's important, I'm not like, you're not supposed to not do that. But what I'm getting is that right now, you don't really need somebody to tell you what to do. Like you don't really need somebody to be like, these are the 17 steps that you need to take. And like, if you do not take one of these steps, it's not going to work. That's not really what you need from these people. you need these people's energy. You need these people to hold space for where you're going. So, of course, just like I always tell you guys before these episodes, I always say, like, turn on your intuition, because there's going to be some messages here that are for you and some that are not. And there's just going to be things that pop up that I didn't even say that come to you while I'm talking, because we're in an energetic space. Like, I'm creating a space for us to tap into our energy, our intuition. And it's like, that is what you're needing now, rather than needing like every single step. So that's a level of confidence, like you need to be able to be strong within yourself to know that you do have the answers within you. And these people that show up to support you are more supporting you, holding space, being messengers of your intuition, but not necessarily being the answer, if that makes sense. So it almost looks like you're attracting these people to support you, so that messages from the divine can go through them, and not necessarily that everything they say is exactly for you, including myself, right? Like, there's just no way that everything I say is going to be exactly for you. Instead, I really just hope to show up as a vessel for the information that you may need, and that you're feeling into, like, what that information is. And that's really, like, it just looks like you need to know that here, because there are absolutely people that are going to help you cross over this river. Like, I just see them like helping you in a big way, but they're not necessarily going to carry you on their backs by any means. And they're like, you're not meant to do it exactly the way they did it. You're meant to be inspired and almost like use them as like a vessel for these messages. So just protect yourself, and also, like, have your discernment to make sure that you understand. And of course, like, loving on these people too, because sometimes this person might say something that you're like, whoa, that's absolutely not for me. And you're learning from the contrast. But again, it's not that this is a bad person, it's that you're receiving messages. And one of the ways you're receiving messages is through a contrast. So being like, oh, nope, that's not it. Thank you so much for being the contrast, to what I needed. So lots of love for these people that are going to show up, but making sure that you're keeping your power as they show up in your lives. Message number 4, there is going to be no greater up level than the up level of your voice. And I know we've talked about this a little bit in the other readings, but your voice and using it regularly and practicing it is going to be the greatest shift. It's like the shift comes from your voice. So what that means is you're going to become a better communicator. And what's funny is that I see this all the time, right? In business, you're like, I don't know why I'm not getting through, or like why I can't get these followers, or why I can't blah, 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 or make this money. And it's like, if you're really, really honest with yourself, we're just not communicating well enough yet. Like, we're just, everything honestly in business comes down to how we're communicating. Even the people we attract. There's been times that I've looked at my business and been like, why am I attracting these kind of people? Like, my energy, I don't know why these people keep showing up for me. You almost like get annoyed at the people, and you're like, no, dude, those people are showing up because you're talking to them. There's something in the way that you're communicating that is attracting those people. So that's why they're coming your way. Actually, my friend, Caro de Posada, that is a client of Stacy Boham. Boham, I want to say. I'm sorry, I'm saying her last name wrong. But Caro was the one that was like, oh my God, you know what I learned from Stacy? And like and we had talked about this before, and I was like, oh my God, that makes total sense. Like, and it's not even so much that I'm saying something that's attracting those kind of people. It's often what I'm not saying that's attracting those people. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know, like, communication is going to be one of the greatest up levels right now for you, which means that you need to exercise communication. So whatever that means for you, that might be, I'm going to get on Instagram live every day, or I'm going to make a podcast episode once a week. And even if nobody's listening to my podcast, even if nobody's showing up to my lives, even if nobody's reading my emails, even if nobody's reading my writing, it doesn't matter, because it's the practice of getting clear on your communication and telling your story clearly, telling your message clearly. That is what's bringing this up level. And I just see that this is a time to sprint. Like, you can't say, oh yeah, I'll do an Instagram live once a month, or I'll speak in front of a crowd when I get invited. It's like, you can speak in front of a crowd today if you wanted to right now by opening up your TikTok or your Instagram. There's a crowd there. They might not all come to hear you talk, but there's a crowd there. You don't have to wait to get invited to a big podcast. You don't need to wait to get invited to speak at a conference. You have the power to speak in front of those people with your phone, and that muscle is basically going to give you like these bigger opportunities. All the up level comes from your voice. I just can't say that enough. I will use my voice to tell you that is where the up level is coming from. It's coming from your communication. Message number 5. So this is a message about something that is actually getting in your way with the up level. Like I said, like any prediction, guys, we have to live into that path in order for that prediction to be true for us. So all of us are going to experience different levels of this prediction, right? In a couple weeks and a couple months, when all of this starts to come into our lives, some of you are going to be like, whoa, the avalanche came. And some of you, your level of avalanche is going to be 10 new people that came, right? And for some people, it might be 10 million people that came. I don't know. Like, there's going to be a range in that avalanche. It's a prediction, and it's like, it's very much about how much capacity we have to hold this, let's call it lucky break, that's going to come through, right? So you can be a 10, you can be, at 100. Depending on how open we are, how much capacity we have, how open we are, we will receive more. And one of the things that's blocking us from receiving this avalanche is that some of us are trying to outsmart this situation. I see a lot of you using your third eye, right? So using that psychic ability, that intuitive ability to kind of look into the future, to get ahead of things and be like, I'm going to do this smarter than everybody else. I am not going to make a mistake. I'm going to do this right. Reminds me of my wedding. I was the last friend of the group to get married, so I had gone to a lot of weddings, and I had seen a bunch of my friends trip and fall, right? And I was like, I'm not going to do it like them. I'm going to be smarter. I've done all the research, and then now I'm going to, have the most perfect wedding. My wedding was pretty damn perfect, not going to say, but it was like I was trying to outsmart the system and not have mistakes. But of course I had a ton of mistakes at wedding, like everybody does, right? So it makes me feel like where you're going, you're leaping, you're going to up level, you're going to do something new, and you're trying to avoid making mistakes. So you're trying to find the perfect path. You're trying to be like the right answer versus the wrong answer. And I'm here to tell you that there is no right or wrong. It's really about you. That avalanche is going to come from a brave heart. It looks like I'm just bravely going into this. I'm totally opening. I will protect myself as much as possible. It's like saying, my son just went on a camping trip. We packed him with everything possible, right? Everything that was on the list, everything that he needs for that camping trip. But I'm sure when he's there, it's his first camping trip with the school. There's probably something that he's going to be like, I brought the wrong socks. I should have brought these shoes, or, I didn't bring enough Band-Aids. There's going to be something. And guess what? The next camping trip he goes with the school, he's going to bring those things. And he's going to be like, I learned from the first time. So of course you are going to learn and tweak and fix things. And this obsession of trying to look into the future and do it smarter than others, guys, that is so egotistical. You know what I mean? You think that everybody else trips and falls, but you won't? Doing something big that you're about to do? No, it's going to happen. And actually, you not thinking that that's going to happen to you, or you putting this pressure on yourself to get it perfect, is going to delay the process and also not give you the capacity to hold as much. Because if you are number one, not only am I afraid of trip and falling, but I don't want to see anybody trip. I don't want anybody to see me trip and fall. So what happens when you don't want to be seen, right? So I might put something out, but since I know that it's not perfect, chances are I am going to trip and fall. So I'm only going to let 10 people see it rather than letting 10,000 people see me fail. And like, we need to be brave enough to be like, yes, of course I'm going to trip and fall, but you know what? I have a very strong inner mother in myself. I know how to care for myself. I know how to take care of myself. I'm going to protect myself as much as possible. I have some good support systems around me, all that kind of stuff. It's all good. And I'm going to move forward with a brave heart and really capture as much fish as I can, even though chances are I'm probably going to have to be like, hey, fish, sorry, kind of messed up there. Let's do it again. Let's take two, right? That's going to happen. But if you try to use your intuition over your heart, you're just not going to get the most out of this. So stop trying to think that you're smarter than everybody, that you're going to do this smarter. You might be a better preparer and you might have done research and all that kind of stuff, but you are still just like the rest of us, guys. We are living this human experience, and you might do it a little bit better, obviously, than the person that wasn't prepared, for sure. And that's like a given, but it's never going to fully bulletproof you. And when you accept that and then start to go into your heart and be like, okay, I'm going to make choices from my heart, not necessarily from choices from protecting myself, being like, well, I'm going to do it this way because I don't want this to happen to me. Instead of being like, no, like, what is the way that I truly want to do it? Or like, what's the best way for the people, for my clients? Like, really tapping into the heart and knowing that, yeah, I know, get it. The heart's like kind of messy, and it's, and the heart doesn't predict the way the third eye does. Like, I get that, but the heart has the power of the energy, and where you're going is all about the energetics, not so much about the system and the perfection. So you can do it that way. I'm not going to stop you. You can use the third eye, but it's really, the power is within the heart. Message number 6. I see some sort of unveiling, and I'm really excited about that. I have goosebumps. Makes me feel like you're doing something new. You're releasing something. Maybe you're like changing your branding, changing packaging. I don't know, something there. Super exciting. And I really want to tell you that it needs to be celebrated. Maybe until now, you haven't celebrated a bunch. I mean, I think about myself. I don't really make like big celebrations over the things that I do. Except for like, even my last book launch, I was like I celebrated it. And I was so overwhelmed by like how much love I got from like from like putting up this celebration. It was really interesting. I didn't know what to do with it. So it was like a learning experience for me. I was like, whoa, all these people want to celebrate me. And I had to get comfortable with being celebrated. That was like an experience for me. And I'm like, that's probably why I don't usually do it, because I didn't know how it felt to be celebrated, I guess, in that way. So now it looks like celebration's really important. So it makes me feel like if you are unveiling something, maybe you're rebranding or you're launching a podcast or whatever, and it doesn't mean that you need to celebrate the podcast on day one, but maybe say, after 3 months, I'm going to celebrate the podcast and I'm going to do like a little party for it or a launch for it or something. Maybe the first 3 months is like a dress rehearsal, but it does look like you need to celebrate. Their celebration is going to carry you over. It's almost like boosters. It feels like wherever you're going, whatever efforts you're making, if you add some celebration to your business, it's going to push you like 10 steps forward rather than like 1 step forward that you're taking. So I'm really excited. It's like a little bit of a magic sauce celebration. So it's kind of like making a big deal about something that maybe you wouldn't typically make a big deal about. You need that celebration. And even if you have to go back to something that you didn't celebrate and now it's time to celebrate it. So that might be like putting a party together. That might be putting like a launch together. That might be maybe if somebody signs up for something that you do, that you give them something. Actually, I signed up for this coaching situation a few weeks ago, and my coach sent me like flowers. She sent like a package with like some merch, basically some swag. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I really felt, especially the flowers, like I felt very celebrated. And I think by celebrating me, she was like celebrating herself at the same time. And I had never seen that before. And I really appreciated it. So obviously whatever celebration means to you, but it feels like it supercharges your manifestations. So just dropping that there. And lastly, message number 7. This Uplevel is all about community. this is all about being surrounded by loyal friends and people that are have the same visions as you, like that they love what you're doing. And it's not really the type of community where there's like this leader and everybody's like obsessed with the leader. It's actually not that. It's community around we're all excited about the same thing. We all believe in the same vision and mission. I am drenched in goosebumps right now. So, of course, getting a little bit more clear on your vision, your mission, if you haven't in a while, but really like remember what you're doing and why you're doing it. And remembering that, I almost feel like you're not even gonna have to like really vocalize this, like you just kind of need to know it. And it looks like your community comes from there. And this Uplevel has some aspect of community to it. So because of that, my sense is that if you are building something new, if you're unveiling something new, I would consider making a place for people to gather. So if you don't have that place for people to gather, or even just naming it, right? Like maybe those of us who listen to the podcast, I'm going to start saying like, you leave me a comment on my Friday post when I post about the podcast, right? Like that post in itself could be a place for all of us to gather who listen to the episode, right? So I can name the place where people can gather because I might already have like a place where we can gather. So it might be a naming of it, or it might be an addition, like adding community to something that you're already doing. So like maybe even bringing in some sort of technology or software that holds community. But these people need to gather. We are going to be gathering more than ever. It's very interesting, like this place that we're going to, what we're creating like in this new earth basically is it's coming actually from gathering. It's like there's all these like masterminds almost, it looks like think tanks in our own little way, right? Like almost your own community, believe it or not, they are exchanging ideas and exchanging energy in a way that ultimately creates the vision that we all have together. So they're kind of like little think tanks and little masterminds. So that's why community is so important. It's like an exchange of ideas and thoughts that basically turn into something over time. That's not going to happen overnight, but that's why community is going to be such a big thing going forward. Like we need, with where humanity is going, we need more contact with each other than ever before. It was almost like before we needed alone time, like we almost needed like just whatever kind of reflecting and stuff like that. But now we're going to almost see like problem solving coming from community. So where before it was maybe even like consuming or just thinking of new thoughts, we're going to see some problem solving and just really cool things coming from community. So bringing community forward, having a place for them to go. I think that's also, part of our message of like, get the ducks in a row. It's just like they need a place to gather. I know sometimes community can be overwhelming. I've definitely have had my feelings about like hosting community. But a lot of that is just because, we just need the right rules and systems. Having a good community that isn't overwhelming is all about setting up the space. It makes me think about like my kids when they were like in preschool, right? Like, I mean, what a wild group of people to have together, right? A bunch of preschoolers. But I love how those rooms are always set up, right? It's like, this is where you put your book bag and this is where the blocks go and everything is labeled. And it's just so easy for a child to move through there because they can see that everything has its place. So it's like, there's just no way that little community would work well if things weren't in order or labeled. So don't be afraid of creating community or having the responsibility of community. Just know that if you make a good room for them to know what they need to do while they're there, you're good, you're solid, and that's just like, it's just going to help more with where you're going. Okay, my friends, that is what I got for you today. I cannot wait to see this Uplevel. I actually had something else in mind to do today in the podcast, and I just really, really feel these angels around me, like that are really overseeing you, that they're just really excited about where you're going, and they just said these people just need a little bit of a pep talk, a little bit of encouragement, because it's coming. And I hope that this really supports you in bringing all those people and customers and abundance and all the things, because I know that there is no better of a person to care for these people. And I'm so happy to be in community with you, because I know you are creating really great things and beautiful things and bringing so much more light into the world. So I honor you and I thank you for what you're doing. And I thank you for always being here. I send you so much love, and I will see you in the next episode.